immigrants, illegals that are here, that are in freaking gangs, that to join the gang, they have to kill people, that sell drugs, that beat the shit out of his wife. We get rid of him. Is that who you're sticking up for? Are you honestly gonna sit here and say Trump is just doing abroad any illegal? No, it's going after the illegals, all right? And you mentioned veterans. I'm a United States Air Force veteran. When I joined, I swore an oath to the Constitution to protect this country of enemies foreign and domestic. And I never knew, Piers, who was the domestic. You know what the domestic is? It's the people that flood this country with illegals. They don't give a shit about law. They weaponize the justice system.
Hello, my friends. We meet again. And this time, Vinnie Oshana of the PBD podcast is back on the Piers Morgan Uncensored show to completely school Tim Miller and this wacko lefty woman here on politics such as Trump's policies, on the lefties' chances of winning any elections in the future, and so on. These two wackos right here try to espout their typical lefty talking points, and yes, I know Tim Miller is not a lefty. He's actually a Republican. Yeah, no, he might have been at one point, but he's not anymore. He's pretty much lefty now. And Vinny, of course, has to go off and school them and put them in their place. Let's see how Vinnie Oshana does against Tim Miller, wacko lefty woman, and also to this woman right here. She does a good job as well. But let's see what goes down on the Piers Morgan Uncensored show.
I am genuinely thinking about this. I think that there is something to be said of, I personally don't like Project 2025, but they are accomplishing the goals in there. And I don't mean that in a snarky way. If that is what you want to do, then they are doing that well.
Yeah, all right. I know nothing about this woman, but yet I already know everything I need to know. Once you bring up 2025, I already know, okay, I can't take you seriously. No one cares about 2025. The only people that push 2025 were lefties as a fear-mongering tactic. Oh, my 2025. Oh, no, my Project 2025. Just because there are some things outlined in Project 2025 that overlap with Trump's agenda doesn't mean then that he's executing Project 2025.
What's extraordinary to me, see, I would take everything you say a lot more seriously. If you said, you know what, Piers, what is indisputable is that on the southern border, there's been a 95% drop in the number of people coming over illegally. That is clearly, demonstrably, inarguably, and non-partisan, inarguably, a fact. And he should be celebrated and acknowledged for that. But it's being completely ignored by many on the mainstream media. And I get, this is my problem with it, is that the anti-Trump sentiment is always so intense that no one can even bring it upon themselves to give him credit for an obvious win for America. That is an obvious win for the United States. There are many other things you could quibble with and question or feel enraged by.
No, I think that the way that
no one can even bring it upon themselves to give him credit for an obvious win for America. That is an obvious win for the United States. There are many other things you could quibble with and question or feel enraged by. But you can't say that, Kat? You can't say on the southern border that's a big success?
No, I think that the way that Trump is treating immigrants, this is a country that's built by immigrants. My dad is an immigrant.
These are people pouring in illegally in their millions over the southern
there
border.
There are people that are seeking asylum, and we need
Well, they're not all
have...
seeking asylum. You know that, Kat.
No,
Come on. You don't
bullshit.
think... You genuinely...
Oh my goodness, can this woman over here go back to selling her crystals on Etsy? Like, she's like espousing every lefty talking point. She is like a walking lefty stereotype with the whole, we were built by immigrants. Oh, my dad was an immigrant. Oh, they're refugees. They're seeking a better life. I'm a Project 2025. Who is this woman? Why is she on the panel? Get her out of there.
Literally just
hang on, just to be clear, you genuinely think nearly 10 million...
in El Salvador being
Kat.
shipped to a concentration in El Salvador.
Kat, we're not talking about the ones being shipped to prisons in El Salvador. We're talking about the reportedly 10 million people who came over the southern border in the Biden administration. You think they're all genuine asylum seekers?
I think that we don't have a good enough asylum process, and there are plenty that are claiming asylum, and it doesn't matter whether someone is claiming asylum or not. Trump is treating them all the same. I mean, he just deported a 2-year-old U.S. citizen back to Honduras who is being treated for cancer. And that's the problem here, is when it comes to our border issues, we are focusing on, it's treated so broadly and so angrily, so hatefully. And there's no difference between these people. The way that this administration is treating them is inhumane.
Okay, Tim, you wanted to jump in there.
Before Vinny chimes in and explodes here, which he is known to do, I want to point out that it's interesting that she says they're being sent to concentration camps in El Salvador. Now, we all know they're being sent to prison because they're dangerous MS-13 gang members. But they have to say concentration camps because they know that conjures up different imagery in our heads than if you were to call them what they are, which are prisons. Because typically criminals go to prisons. But concentration camps, well, that's where all the the innocent Jewish people were kept in the concentration camps in Nazi Germany. And that's why they use that terminology. It's all emotions, it's all wordplay, it's all manipulation.
Hang on, Vinny. Hang on.
Go ahead, Vinny. I'll follow up, Vinny.
Yeah,
Go
Tim,
for it, bro.
Tim, and I appreciate you, bro. Thank you, and I appreciate it. First of all, that 2-year-old was here with an illegal alien mother, and if the mother gets deported, Piers, the kids go with the mother. So stop that rhetoric.
She is a 2-year-old being treated for cancer.
Excuse me. I let you speak. Please let me finish, okay? And you're talking about, first of all, let me back up. Americans can't afford $1,000 and they're struggling. That's because of the last administration. Trump just got here. That's number one. And are you truly, genuinely talking about illegal? You're talking about illegal immigrants, illegals that are here, that are in freaking gangs. That to join the gang, they have to kill people, that sell drugs, that beat the shit out of his wife. We get rid of him. Is that who you're sticking up for? Are you honestly gonna sit here and say Trump is just doing abroad any illegal? No, it's going after the illegals, all right? And you mentioned veterans. I'm a United States Air Force veteran. When I joined, I swore an oath to the Constitution to protect this country of enemies foreign and domestic. And I never knew, Piers, who was the domestic. You know what the domestic is? It's the people that flood this country with illegals. They don't give a shit about law. They weaponize the justice system. They try to kill our freaking president. And then when he tries to kick these people out, he's the mean one. I'm sorry. This is an argument that you are not going to win. Okay, there's absolutely no. He's talking about illegal gang members, and you're sticking up for MS-13 members. Have you ever encountered an MS-13 member? Have you ever spoken to one of them?
Well, I think the problem, Vinny, the problem, Vinny, hang on, I'm going to come to Tim. We are conflating several different issues here, because the issue of people being deported, many of whom are already on the deportation list and are convicted criminals, some of them for murder, rape, and so on. I don't think many Americans have any sympathy with, I assume, with those on a deportation list who've had the due process but haven't yet been deported, now being deported. There is an issue about whether they should be put in prisons in El Salvador. I get that. But that's not to do with what's happened on the southern border. That's a different issue altogether. So, Tim, let me ask you the same question.
Sure.
You wouldn't naturally race to praise Trump for anything, but can you find it in yourself to say that what's happened on the southern border is a good thing?
We have gotten to a point where these lefties, like these people, they're so brainwashed, they're so indoctrinated into hating Donald Trump that they won't complain when Obama deported people. But when Trump wants to deport people, well, all of a sudden that's when they want to defend all these illegal immigrants. She brings up the 2-year-old. The 2-year-old was deported with his mother. So now all of a sudden the lefties want to separate kids from their parents?
And .shop/Piers and use code Piers, as P-I-E-R-S, for 10% off. That's vanman.shop/Piers and use code Piers for 10% off.
I can't, and here's why. And I was happy to let my cousin Vinny over there go. I thought he was going to explode. He might have had a heart attack over there if we didn't give him a chance to talk. But
I'm good.
Here's the thing, Piers. I believe that. Look, I used to be a Reagan Republican. All right, I believed that we were a shining city on a hill. I believed that we were a place where people should want to come if they're fleeing oppression. If we're talking about these Venezuelans in particular, they're in a communist country where they are being persecuted by a communist dictator. And I think that we should have an orderly process where people should be able to come from Venezuela to this country to be refugees like so many have before, like all of us have who came to America. That is what is unique about America. That's what makes America special, is that everyone except for the Native Americans came here because they were looking for opportunity, because they were fleeing someplace else. And we created a system that was obviously totally out of control. And so bringing some control to that system is fine. But that doesn't mean 0 people come in. I'm not happy about that. I want Venezuelans freeing communism to be able to come here. We need to create a system where people can come here. And you're saying that these people are coming illegally. We actually know for sure that at least a couple of the Venezuelans that were sent to El Salvador came through the legal process. You might not like that process, but they used the CB1 app. They said that they were refugees fleeing oppression. They went to a third country. In one case, a guy went to Colombia, just like you're supposed to, and then he was brought to Florida, and that man has been sent to El Salvador. Maybe he's a trend to Aragua. We don't know because there wasn't a court hearing. I've talked a lot about the gay makeup artist Andre. I'm sorry, Piers, but I want people to come. I hear you. It's not good to be zero.
Tim,
we're America.
Tim, I agree with you.
We're not China.
Listen, I don't disagree with you about the due process issue. And Elizabeth, what I would say, I think, against the pro-Trump argument on this.
Yeah, the thing is, Mr. Tim Miller, look at my pearl necklace, Tim Miller, is that this is unprecedented. Millions, 10 million plus illegal citizens came here within the last, 4 years? Yeah, listen, I'm not saying no one should ever be allowed to come here. Being a refugee here doesn't make you a citizen. And bottom line here is because we're in this unique situation where there are millions of people here that shouldn't be here, that weren't vetted, didn't go through the legal process. The fact of the matter is there are millions of people that are here that shouldn't be here. And yeah, hopefully we could get back eventually to a system where at least a reasonable amount of people come in or something like that, or whatever Tim Miller's proposing. But we can't do that unless in order to have order, we have to bring order back, and that's what's going on here.
Is if you start to play loose with due process, what happens, as Donald Trump is now realizing, I think, is that the stories become the stories which are about due process, not what's happened on the southern border. There is a clear, demonstrable big success on the southern border, but I'm not reading or seeing anything about that. All I'm hearing about are these 1 or 2 isolated people who have not been afforded due process and where it looks unfair. And my point about that is that it's almost handing a victory to the jaws of defeat if you abandon due process. What do you think of that argument?
Well, I think it's a stupid argument. Just because the media is reporting on 1 or 2 incidents doesn't mean that Trump's doing anything wrong. That just means the media has an agenda to push. That just means the media and the left have an agenda to push, and they're pushing it. That's all that means. It doesn't mean Trump is necessarily doing anything wrong. Any little thing that Trump does that could be remotely interpreted as wrong, the left are going to push that out there. How come you think you've been hearing about Trump wearing a blue suit to the Pope's funeral? So, stupid argument, Pierce. It doesn't mean anything.
I mean, I have a lot to say in general, but can I just ask you, Piers, do you genuinely believe that the mainstream media that we've talked a bit about now for the last 15 minutes would have given Donald Trump the win and actually written about the victory at the border, regardless of what else was happening in the country? Do you believe that?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I think that's part of the problem. I think part of the problem with Donald Trump, part of the problem with Donald Trump from day one, in terms of the way the media have treated him, is that they have failed to understand why he got elected. He got elected because he's not a conventional politician. He doesn't behave like a conventional politician. So the Trump hysteria raged away for 4 years the first time. This time round, we were told it's going to be different. Everyone's learned their lessons, and they haven't. The hysteria has blown up again about absolutely everything. Now, I've just been in America for a month. It's sort of every morning's like a jungle of everyone going bonkers about everything Trump says and does. When actually, as with all things Trump, it's better to take a bit of time and see how things play out, because I think that's what he does. I think he throws stuff up against the wall. He sees what sticks and what works and what doesn't work, what needs changing and so on. But the problem with the kind of controlled chaos strategy that Trump deploys is that he does allow his opponents, his enemies, and I include quite a lot of people in the media who really do want to take him down. Even now, you can see it. It gives them a chance and an excuse to do that. And it takes away from the successes. And I think on tariffs and stuff like that, I can see the big picture. I think most people understand the big argument and don't disagree with it. It's the way he's gone about this. He has to get some wins on the board. Because otherwise, if in 6 months' time or a year's time, or as you head towards the midterms, the US economy is still in the doldrums and the stock market is still tanking, then you're going to lose the House in the midterms, and the environment will change completely. So I do think there's, he's playing with fire here with this stuff, where he's got to get wins on the board. Do you accept that?
I accept that, but I would argue that Donald Trump, obviously, as you know, is fully aware that midterms are coming up and maybe is acting like a president and not a politician worried about midterms. Not everyone can be Joe Biden and try to erase student loan debt a couple of weeks before the midterms to try to score themselves a win, for example, right? Maybe that's not what Donald Trump is trying to do. I think the fact is we're talking here, no one is being honest. That's why I brought up the dinner to begin with, and the fact that they sat there and applauded themselves and lied again. My fellow panelist here said that, whatever Steve Bannon does is the same. Number one, I don't agree. But Steve Bannon goes out and says, I am a Trump supporter. No one at NBC or Axios or Politico or anywhere else goes out and says I'm a Biden supporter. I saw Jake Tapper a few weeks ago say I'm not on the left, and I sat there with my jaw on the ground. Yeah. The fact is, they believe that they are actually moderates. They believe they're telling the American people the truth, and they believe they're getting away with murder because they continue to throw their own bias into everything else that they report. The American people are not stupid. What is sad is that the journalists in our country believe that they are. They believe they can tell them how to vote and how to feel, and they will not be able to do the research for themselves. Donald Trump is not worried about victories in the media because he knows the American people not only elected him to do what he's doing, but can figure out what he's doing without, reading through a couple of headlines in the mainstream media. So no, I don't think he's worried about scoring a few wins because he believes he's scoring the exact wins he was elected to score.
Okay, Kat, the interesting sort of sideshow at the moment to all this is the battle for the heart and soul of the Democrat Party, who have got record low polling at the moment. You're seeing a number of people like Gavin Newsom, governor of California, steaming very fast to the middle ground, abandoning a lot of the more progressive woke ideology as he goes, pretending he had nothing to do with it. You're also seeing people like AOC, who are out there getting more and more support, but of course belong entirely to the progressive left. You've also got people like David Hogg, who says we've got to get rid of all these old timers. We've got to ripple up and get some new, young, fresh blood and thinking into the party, which I would completely concur with. When you see the likes of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and these others, you just think you've got to move on now, and you've got to find a new, coherent voice that's going to get people to vote for it and have a view for America. But it can't be the progressive left, can it? Haven't we just seen with the last election an utter repudiation of a lot of what the progressive left stands for? So if you end up with AOC as the standard bearer going forward, I think you end up losing again.
Frankly, I disagree. I mean, Harris, especially after the DNC, was campaigning with Liz Cheney, trying to present herself as like this moderate Nikki Haley, Kamala Harris voter that obviously didn't really exist, or at least not in huge numbers. I think what a lot of us call progressivism is really just common sense. I mean, my big vision for the world is that every American should afford housing, groceries, and healthcare with money left over to save and spend. And that doesn't seem like a very high bar, and it's not for any of our peer countries, but it is here. And neither party is truly messaging on that. I mean, you have on the right now, having tax cuts that benefit the super rich, but not the average American. And these tariffs will cost the average American, I think, about $4,000 every year. And as for Democrats, there are a lot of them that are more interested in their, corporate donors and trying to always cater to this very milquetoast vision when both parties should be going towards that idea. Housing, groceries, and healthcare with money left over to save and take your kid to the zoo or go to the movies.
But the reason people don't focus on those things or talk about them is that on the progressive left, you'll also have people at high levels of the party come out and say with a straight face, we think biological men should be in women's sport. And the moment most average Americans hear that, they do what you just did. They roll their eyes and go, you lot are insane. And you're doing it for a different reason. You're doing it because you think, I'm insane for saying that. But I can tell you, as somebody who's always been pretty liberal, I think that strategy was completely insane. The idea that you would let your leaders go out and propagate such bullshit, which most Americans with any vein of common sense, as you call it, know is bullshit, that then allows exactly what happened. The Republicans to run with that and say, look at these people, they're nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the Democratic Party has a messaging issue, but I think this is less about the Democratic Party and more about right-wing media, which I watch and analyze for a living, or at least before I started running for Congress, there's been plenty of research talking about when people transition, how it doesn't really impact their effects in sports. This is a very, very, very tiny percent of the
No, it's
population.
complete bullshit. I'm sorry.
Can I please finish
by the way,
this?
I'm not right-wing media
Nope.
in any shape or
I'm
form.
not saying you are.
I know, but I'm just telling you, I'm not, and I think it's bullshit. The idea that it's a small thing, it's not. You're seeing it more and more and more and more and more. There are millions of people, young people in America identifying as trans. This problem is going to get worse and worse and worse. And the issue is about women's rights to equality and to fairness and to safety. Nothing more than that. It's not about
The
trans.
amount of trans people
I want
in
the same,
sports
but
in the
just to
first
be clear,
place is
I want the same.
minuscule.
Hang on, Kat. I want the same for trans people, but not at the expense of women's rights. That's what it's about. And if you can't have a Democrat Party that stands up completely rock solid for women's rights, because it's far too concerned with promoting a trans agenda where it erodes women's rights, you're never going to get re-elected as a party, ever.
Okay, this is the thing. Trans people's existence, and even like the 40 people that are in sports, isn't the big issue with women's rights. It isn't a women's rights issue.
But it becomes
at all.
one when you
Can I please
support
finish?
obvious unfairness. That's the point.
Can I please finish?
Sure.
Thank you. The thing here is you have Republicans right now in the state at the federal level that are saying we need to check children's genitals to make sure they're the right ones before they play. That's a harm to children and women. The SAVE Act, which is going to stop millions of married women from being able to vote if they don't have their birth certificate and proof of their name change, that's an actual harm to women. Trans people existing, and in like one state that did a law against trans kids being in sports, there was literally one trans child that was in any sport who was supported by their own team. This is lawmakers at the state level, people that are being paid, that are full-ass adults, that are bullying children.
So just to be clear, so just to be clear, you would personally like it to continue. You think it's perfectly okay for biological men to compete in women's sport. Is that your position?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't mind trans women being in sports.
Okay. Then this is the problem. Then, Kat, with respect to you,
and I beat them.
Kat, with great respect to you, I'm very glad you're not running this issue in America because it is grotesquely unfair to women. Vinny, final word to you, and then I'll come to Tim for his final word.
Well, she just said it. I don't like you're spitting out these numbers. If one man tries to take away a scholarship from a female, that's anti-woman. And for you to sit there and act like it's not a freaking problem, it's happening more and more, like Piers said, every single day. And that's the problem, is this low number talk. If one girl is being affected, and if there's men in women's bathrooms, you guys make it seem like we're just coming out of thin air. And that's the problem, Piers, with the Democratic Party. You heard it here first. No vision, no plan. They're totally fine with a male with testicles beating the shit out of women, spiking volleyballs in their freaking face and sending them to the hospital. It's no. It's unbelievable that I'm happy you're exposing yourself, because he nailed it. This is why your party is going to keep losing over and over and over, because you guys are standing on issues that it's so common sense. Men should play with men. Women should play with women. And if you don't think it's affecting women, go ask all these girls that are losing scholarships to men with freaking testicles that are beating the shit out of them in sports.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable that you think like that.
Okay, Tim, I think, Tim, the wider part, I don't want to, relitigate the whole trans thing, but I think the point is, as the Democrats try and find a new voice, a new way to compete, and a new way to win, I just feel they have to go down the Gavin Newsom route of abandoning just propagating all this progressive far left stuff. Otherwise, they're just unelectable.
Yeah, so just two thoughts on this. Just one really quick on the moral bankruptcy of Vinny's position. I have a more nuanced view than Kat does on trans women in sports, but the idea that having one trans woman in a swimming meet is unacceptable, but I don't care if I wrongly sent, but I don't care, but you don't care apparently if we wrongly sent one person to a concentration camp in El Salvador. If we you don't care about due process. No. You said you don't care about due process.
Two different points. You're conflating two different points.
No,
Two
I'm not.
different points.
This
Let me
is a
guess. And
moral
you're using the
issue.
word concentration camp. Tim, you're using the word concentration camp. So you're one of those people that's like, Trump is Hitler. Again, your dumbass party has watered down the name Hitler.
yelling.
The name Hitler isn't even strong anymore. Because you know what? You compare him with Trump, people go, oh, if Hitler's like Trump, then he's not bad. Stop saying that, guys. That's stupid rhetoric. Concentration camp. You're an illegal gang member. Get the fuck out of my country. Period. You don't belong here. You have
Okay.
deportation orders.
Well,
You're not supposed
we
to be here.
gotta
You
do-
beat your wife.
Okay,
Bye.
Okay,
Bye.
listen.
Can I
Bro.
jump in?
Listen.
Raise your hand.
Bro.
We've got,
No, no, please let me
unfortunately,
finish.
we have to wrap it up.
Please let me
All
finish.
I would say is, Tim, in
I have
relation to
30
your
seconds?
point, relation to your point, Tim, I actually think it is wrong to deport people to prisons in El Salvador
you.
without proper due
And it's a
process.
much more
Don't
serious
be in a
moral
gang,
issue.
Piers. Don't be in a gang.
Well, Vinny, I have not seen yet enough evidence for my liking that this guy was a member of that gang. If
gay
there
makeup
is,
artist was
if
in a
there
gang?
is,
He was
Why
beating
would
his
you-
wife? He
if
doesn't
there,
have to-
hang on. If there
Why do they
is-
have to show you?
If there is,
Why do
put
they
it
have to
out
show
there.
you?
If there is, put it out there, and then I may change my mind. But until I see it, I'm afraid I'm not satisfied. And I also think,
you're assuming
the
they're
trans
lying?
issue
You guys think
is
that they're
important.
lying?
Well, let's wait and see.
Are
Yeah.
they lying, Piers?
Let's wait and see.
Yes.
They're not, you
I mean,
guys,
initially-
you guys
well,
think
I
they're
think that-
lying.
Well, no, Vinny,
Yes,
but
they're
initially,
lying.
Yes,
and just to
they're
be
lying
clear,
to you.
just to be the initial,
lying.
Yeah.
the
Trump lies a lot.
administration initially said it was a mistake. Their words, not mine. Anyway, we got to leave it there. Great panel. Thank you.
So listen, I appreciate that Piers Morgan tries to be balanced. I appreciate that. But come on, Piers. The dude had MS-13 tattoos on his fingers. I mean, he's been seen with MS-13 gang members. He was like caught like human traffic, like he was caught with a bunch of people in his car suspected human trafficking, which Joe Biden's FBI told the police to let him go. Big police L on that part for just letting him go. The car that he was driving transporting those people was man, I forgot, but it belonged to pretty much like a criminal. You know, and then there's the restraining orders from his own wife of physical abuse. I mean, come on, Piers. Like, all signs point to MS-13. I mean, even when that one congressman went to go visit him over there, he didn't even ask him, hey, man, are you MS-13? He admitted he didn't even ask him. And I think he didn't ask him because he knows what the answer is, or at least he's afraid of what the answer most likely is. So I'm sorry, but that Garcia dude, yeah, probably MS-13. In terms of the gay hairdresser that Tim Miller keeps bringing up, we haven't actually heard much talk about that, so I don't know. I haven't even looked up what the heck's going on with that dude. But this fallacy that because he's a gay hairdresser, that therefore he can't be a gang member, it's fallacious. And in terms of Tim Miller's argument, like, well, you don't care if we send back one person without due process, but you care if we have one man in a women's sport? Yeah, in both situations, we're trying to protect people. So if we're sending people out of here, it's because we're trying to protect American citizens. No citizens have been deported. Name me one actual citizen that got deported by mistake. I believe it's a zero, because I believe if there was one American citizen that got deported by mistake and sent over there by mistake, we would have definitely heard about that from the left. But the best they can do was, well, this guy is an MS-13. Well, that guy's a gay hairdresser. He can't be a bad man. That's the best that they could do. And they're all about my due process when it comes to getting them out of here. But when it comes to letting them in here, oh, they don't care about any kind of legal process. It's horseshit. But anyway, when we're deporting people out, it's because we're trying to protect American citizens. When we're keeping trans women, when we keep men out of women's sports, it's because we're trying to protect the women in there. But these people, the left, they're absolutely, utterly insane, because they would much rather have a man playing against women in women's sports if it means protecting the fifis of that fucking man. Or we'd rather have potential criminals here in this country if it means protecting the fifis of these criminals. Oh, they're just here for a better life. They're probably going to get a better life while making ours much shittier. It doesn't matter if the left has AOC or Bernie Sanders, or Pete Buttigieg or Gavin Newsom or freaking that skateboarder guy from Texas, Pedro, whatever his name was, Beto, whatever his face is. Doesn't matter who they put up in the Democrat Party. If their policies are the same and their messaging is the same, it's not going to matter for them. The left believe that the government, the US government, should just take care of everybody in America and pretty much the world at this point, because they want to win us over by offering us handouts, by offering us, hey, we'll take care of you. We'll pay for your health care. You don't have to pay back your student loans. We'll give you free college. They just want the government to take care of us, and they want people from outside of this country to come here so we could take care of them as well. They just think America is just this never-ending money pit, this never-ending source of just of responsibility to just take care of everybody. I'm sorry, that's not what this country is about. And once they get that through their thick skulls, then maybe, just maybe, they'll have a chance of winning elections in the future. But until then, there is no hope for this party. But what did you guys think about this? I thought Vinny did a great job. Good job, Vinny, on schooling this. Apparently, this is she ran for Congress. This woman. Really? Where did she find the time to take a break from hosting her sound baths to run for Congress? Anyway, let me know what you think. Leave a comment down below. Give this video a like if you liked it. And if you really like it, please consider subscribing to my channel. I have a whole bunch more content just like this, especially a whole playlist of Piers Morgan panels that I think you'll enjoy.